What's up, everybody? The doctor is in, and today I want to talk to you guys about patch burnout. Now, patches are when game developers make balance changes to their games. Say we're talking about League of Legends. You can change a champion's health or the amount of damage they do, maybe tweak an ability here or there. Balance changes are there for the health of the game. You know, developers, they want to keep the game feeling fresh. They want the game to feel more balanced. They want everybody to be able to feel like they're enjoying the game and they're having the most fun possible with the game. Different developers have different patch cycles. So like Riot Games, they patch their game every 2 weeks, where games like Hearthstone have it like every 6 months or so. Patch burnout is what happens when you keep having to adapt to a new patch too quickly, and it gets overwhelming because you can't exactly adapt as fast. In games like League of Legends, this can happen very quickly. That is one of the main reasons why we have pro players dropping out so early in their careers. When you look at games like Counter-Strike, we have teams like Virtus Pro who have been playing for decades. A lot of this is to do with the game not really changing all that much. Yes, we have changes here and there, the most recent being the ump nerf, but in the long run, it's really not that common. Patch burnout can affect casual players too. When you're playing a game and your favorite character is going through changes every other week, it can get really draining, and then all of a sudden you lose interest because you don't have that champion that you fell in love with. Patches aren't a bad thing, however. As we've seen with Hearthstone, patches can be very detrimental to the game and to the game's atmosphere if they don't come quick enough. In the past, we've had cards like Undertaker, and more recently Patches the Pirate, where they're left it unchecked for so long that it actually drives players away from the game because they don't have that sense of enjoyment. They don't have that sense of balance anymore. They're just getting trucked over by these cards that many consider overpowered, and there's not a whole lot that the player can do about it. Players are left in this really awkward spot because they really like the game in general, but every time they get that Patches deck, every time they get that Undertaker deck, it just detracts it, and it feels bad because you know why you lost, but there's nothing you can do about it. This is a feeling throughout games, though. Any competitive game, you're going to have these balance patches and you're going to have these changes, and whether they come too soon or too late is a balance that's really hard to find as a game developer. One of the things that can be really trying when it comes to these balance patches is community lashback. With a lot of companies having public beta environments, players can actually get a look at some of the changes that are going to be coming soon to the main servers. This allows them to put their feedback in. And whether this feedback gets listened to or not is kind of up in the air for if it's good or bad. A lot of the feedback is coming from Reddit or Twitter or stuff like this, where they're mainly uninformed people that just knee-jerk, and people that throw out their own opinion. And while it's not on the developer to always listen to this feedback, because like I said, these are mainly uninformed players, sometimes it kind of has to get noticed. Most recently, the Sivir hotfix that went on earlier this week, that she added a ton of damage to one of her abilities, and Riot immediately had to change it within the few hours of release. These are issues that are constantly plaguing these game developers because they don't always know when this impact is going to come. Yes, you can get all the feedback in the world, but it's not always the right feedback. You can get calls for nerfs or buffs, and they may not be in the best interest of the game. You don't hear people calling for Diva buffs or Reinhardt nerfs, but for the health of the game, sometimes they need to happen. With meta shifts, characters can drop in and out of favor. Sometimes the only help for them is these number changes, but also sometimes there's things you can't actually patch out. When you have certain abilities that do certain things, you can't exactly just uproot the entire character to try and make them fit better in a meta. Realistically though, there is no right or wrong way to balance patches or game development. Yes, you can get a lot of flack for one or the other, too early, too late, but at the end of the day, as a game developer, it's up to you and what you decide is the path you want your game to take. There are certainly controversial changes. We have Ghostcrawler going from Blizzard over to Riot, and all the changes that he has made in both companies always getting some flack, along with other changes coming out of balance teams. Team 5, for instance, has gotten so much flack from the Hearthstone community, both good and bad, because the team, they have a certain direction in mind. They have a dream Hearthstone that they want to reach, and the player base doesn't always agree with that. Whether you agree or disagree, however, there are certainly more constructive ways than others to let your feedback be known. You can't just go to Twitter and flame the hell out of whoever is developing the current game you're playing. You have to be respectful, and you have to go through the proper channels. Many games have their own forum section. They can put up threads or reply in comments or just try and contact the developers that way. Personally, I like the Riot way. You know, having balance changes every 2 weeks keeps the game fresh and moving. Granted, there have been some disastrous patches lately with 7.14 and 7.15 both being horrible for the game. It allows the team to change quicker, whereas if we're stuck like in Hearthstone, 6 months before a balance patch makes the game pretty stale. Granted, we could go more than 2 weeks. I feel that a month in between balance patches may be the best route for some of these games because it allows more adaptation. You can play with the meta more, you can play with the new changes more, and finally lock in something a bit more secure than having to change it every other week. But at the end of the day, guys, I like hearing what you have to say. Hit me up on Twitter or leave a comment down below. I'd love to keep this conversation going. But for now, I'm Doctor for Office Hours, and from my house to yours, I'll catch you next week.